You're listening to Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Join us as we explore how medical professionals can achieve stellar success in all areas of life. It's time to level up.
Matthew Lederman, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Thanks for being here. For someone who didn't know or didn't hear about Forks and Knives documentary, I think this is something that everybody should watch or read. What can you tell us about this piece of good information that we had?
Especially for physicians, it tells you all about the different ways you could heal chronic disease and all the ways that we are limited with the toolbox that we're given from conventional medical school and that conventional approach. Not that you want to throw that out, but we're missing a piece. We're missing some important tools. And the diet and lifestyle has become so clear that it's not just a nice thing on the side to do if you feel like it, but it should be a foundation of chronic disease treatment.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So Matthew, let's go back to your beginnings. What can you tell us a little bit, the story of where you started? What was your journey and what are you doing now?
Yeah, I started as a really good student and worked really hard and could get good grades. And my father was a cardiologist, so I said, why? What else would I do? I didn't even really think that much about it. And I liked helping people. I liked healing was something that was really important to me. I got into, worked hard, college, medical school, all that good stuff. But then as I started going through medical school and residency, I realized that there was something missing. I wasn't helping people heal the way I really imagined it. And at the same time, I didn't know what I could do to fix that because none of the tools that I was given really worked. And through some different events, I stumbled across books that said, hey, maybe diet, lifestyle, things like that could help. But particularly initially was the whole food plant-based diet, a very, very big change from the American diet. And I tested that out on myself and felt fantastic, even though I didn't want to switch my diet at the time. But because I felt so good, and it made sense. And then I wound up reading more about it. I said, wow, and it fixed a lot of my issues that I was having around trouble, not sleeping as well, and heartburn and gastrointestinal distress and energy issues, and that I attributed to training. But actually, it was diet and lifestyle was a bigger impact on that. And then after doing that, I realized this is important. This is what we have to do to treat patients effectively. And made it a career move to go into this and open a concierge medical clinic, which then led me to the Forks Over Knives connection. And then from there, eventually started working with Whole Foods Market to help them open medical centers that treated patients this way, changing their health plan to allow, incentivize this type of holistic care with a foundation of nutrition as the treatment, but also bringing in other modalities. And then most recently there were things that still weren't fixed by the diet and lifestyle and conventional medicine. And that's when we jumped into what we have coined as connection medicine and the impact of how our social connections and our connections with our community and how that affects our physical health. And there's really interesting data on the impacts of that on our health. And that's when I was excited to get my certification as a nonviolent communication trainer, which taught me, it was a 4-year training. It was actually harder than medical school for me. It was all about how to connect with other people more effectively. It's not just about being next to somebody or spending time with someone. It's about how do you connect to what's going on inside you and share that with someone else in a way that feels like a gift to them. And it's been really amazing as we take patients now through all of these doors. We have our conventional medicine, we have our nutrition, we have our lifestyle, we have our healthy habits, we have connection skills. And when you put all that together, we're getting some amazing results.
Yeah, it's definitely a completely different approach than traditional medical approach that we're used to.
Yeah, the patients that used to frustrate me because the patients with fibromyalgia and irritable bowel syndrome and chronic back pain that you give them a muscle relaxant and a painkiller and some NSAIDs and they never felt better. And then they would want more pain medication and we would get into an argument about how much pain medication they're taking. It was miserable. Yeah. And now those same patients they used to now I can help them. So those are the ones that I get excited to see when they've gone to the conventional healthcare system and they says, we can't do anything else for you. So what they do is they give them a diagnosis and basically say, there's nothing we can do, maybe some steroid injections or whatever. And now good luck. So now you've given them a diagnosis and you've left them alone and hopeless. I mean, it's like the worst way to leave patients. And then they get worse, which makes a lot of sense because that triggers all the other pathways I was telling you about around connection and the impacts on overall health and well-being, inflammation, and so many other areas. So once they come to us and we can help them, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely a different approach, and I think um it makes people think that medicine and medical school in general, it kind of falls behind in terms of information and the approach that we need to take nowadays, because everything else evolves, right? The technology evolves, all the other fields are evolving. But I feel like in medicine, this new approach that you're describing, it's kind of lag behind in terms of learning capabilities in medical school. I wonder if we should like just, push for some more nutrition-based courses or lifestyle or, alternative medicine courses and, stuff like this in medical school. So people get out with already an idea of what's out there.
Yeah, and it's tough because there's so much noise out there. There is a book that will support eating just about anything if you look hard enough.
Right.
And
There's a study for everything, right?
yeah, so well, if you look in the studies, it's actually pretty clear that a whole food plant-based diet is the most health promoting, whether you add some animal products or but basically more fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, less processed foods, which includes your added oils and added sugars, less animal products. Do you have to be vegan? No, unless you have certain issues, but most of the time they don't have to do that if that's really important for them not to do it. So there's ways. That's what we try to do is work with people around what makes them successful. And then there's lots of ways to replace their old habits. And people that are open to trying to make the changes, those are the ones that are going to be successful. If there's other people that come and say, just do it to me, tell me what to do, and I'll just do anything. And what you really have to do is we'll tell you what to do, but ultimately you have to learn and figure out how to navigate all of this in a way that works for your body. And we'll support you along that path. It's both physically, emotionally, spiritually. It's helping them connect to what their body is needing, and that's a little bit different for each person.
Yeah. So going back to your personal approach to this,
Yeah.
what do you think made you successful in this field? What does success means to you at this point?
Success means to me that I'm doing something that if I won the lottery tomorrow, I would still do the same things. And I'm able to do that. And everything I'm doing now, if I won the lottery tomorrow, I would still be doing. And that to me is a good sign that I'm on the right track. I'd still be with the same, with the same partner in my life. I would still spend the same time with my kids. I would still do the same. And that to me, I can wake up in the morning and I'm clear why I'm getting up. Some days are harder than others, don't get me wrong. But the meaning, the purpose, the interdependence, the self-connection, and the personal growth, all of that is thriving for me, despite my ups and downs, the waves of the day, basically.
Yeah. Interesting. I like that. I'm sure in your journey so far there've been moments that you're very successful in what you were doing, but there are also moments that you were not very successful, and you probably hit some bumps in the roads. Can you give us an example of what that meant to you, and what made you think and maybe move forward on a different scale?
I'm still hitting bumps to this day. Life is full of bumps. I think if you're looking for a life without bumps, you're not trying hard enough. You're not out there growing.
Yeah.
So for me, it's more what is my capacity to navigate bumps most effectively. We have a Substack. Our website, it's all around connection docs, and I spend time there writing about my bumps and what that's taught me and how I'm working. So as much as I'm a student as much as I am a teacher, and it's that openness and that desire to grow and learn that has made me successful. So I could give you examples of bumps if you want to hear bumps and successes. But to me, successes is every day when somebody comes and says, "Hey, that really helped me," or "That was where I have a real connected moment with my daughter or my wife," or I have an impact. I can see the impact. I send an article and people write back and say, "Wow, that really helped me," or I want to have, for me, the biggest need is contribution, to contribute to society in a meaningful way. And I'm blessed that I can have impact every day. And at the same time, there's a lot of areas things that I'm working on that I'd love to have more impact, or I'd love for it to work a little better or a little easier. And, our podcast, we have a podcast with I'll give you an example, our parenting podcast, We Be Parents, and our calming device that we created for people to help regulate their nervous system. We want to get that out there to millions and millions of people, but we don't have the reach yet to do that. So that's a challenge, but that's not something it's doing well, but I'd love to see it reach even more people because I've seen how many people it can help. So that's an example of things not going as well as I'd like or not happening as quickly as I would like.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you think that this success is due to certain habits or routines that you have every day that got you to this point? And I'm sure, there are many, and I'd like to hear from you what those are. But what I'm most interested in is, what do you think the habit or routine that doesn't get enough credit for where you are right now is?
Well, the habits for me that is resourcing my body. As I get older, I have less flexibility in what I can do and still feel good. In your 20s, you could do just about anything and feel fine. I would be on call for 36 hours plus and be able to go out that next night without taking a nap and never sleeping. And I felt great. Now I can't even think about doing that without feeling pain. So I think as I'm getting older, it's really tending to that self-care more. And I think self-care is easily overlooked when you're trying to be productive or you're busy with other things. And now I don't let that get overlooked. I'll say no to other things before I say no to a certain level of self-care. There's obviously some flexibility, but sleep. In general, I'm making sure I always have an 8-hour sleep window, even if I have to go to bed early and say no to other things. I eat a whole food plant-based diet without processed food. I would say 90+% of the time. So I might have a meal out where there's some oil or it's more processed. But in general, I don't sway there. I'd rather skip a meal than eat a meal that is, in my opinions, toxic to my body. One of my challenges is play. I don't get enough play, although I've been working very hard at that. I started taking improv classes, which has terrified me. And at the same time is super fun. And I'm meeting really fun people. And I'm, since COVID, being in person with people in class is like, it's so invigorating and scary at the same time. But that's good for me. I like that. I need that. So making sure I have play. Basically, I'm tending to in our book, Wellness to Wonderful, we outline the 9 pillars. And for me, tending to those 9 pillars, like they're 9 beautiful children that you will worry about for the rest of your life. You'll never get to a place where they're all fine and you don't have to worry. And no one is more important than the other. No one child is more important, but sometimes one needs more of your needs than another, or one needs more of your attention than another. So as long as I'm keeping tending to those 9 pillars, even if sometimes they're out of balance, I'm doing pretty well. And I try not to allow life to get in the way of me making a choice that serves those pillars.
Yeah, I agree with this. I think it's so easy for people to get sidetracked in their lives with different other distractions and not focus on what their own selves means to them. And most of the time, people forget about themselves a lot. They put themselves lower on the list. They need to do this. They have a list. They need to,
Right.
satisfy some other people or, do some other work. But like you said, I think the priority should be on you, because the way you show up for someone else in your best position makes a big difference for someone else
Yes.
too. And that's how you contribute to other people's lives.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the connection between being involved in the Whole Foods system, Whole Foods market system, and the Forks and Knives documentary relationship.
So you want to know more about how that came to be, or how
that came to be.
Yeah. So Forks Over Knives, my mentor when I was first learning about nutrition and lifestyle, John McDougall, put me in touch with Brian Wendell, who was the creator of that movie, because he was looking for someone that was treating patients this way in Los Angeles, which I happened to be, and we met and we really got along well. and it was great. I had no idea at the time that that movie was going to be as successful as it was. We were just happy to help people and do something like that. In hindsight, it was a great decision, and I've had a really great friendship with Brian ever since. And then I met John Mackey, the co-founder and CEO of Whole Foods Market, at John McDougall's plant a weekend seminar. And it was funny. I had our first book that we self-published. I had the book, and I during a break, I ran and followed John Mackey to the bathroom, and I had my book, and I gave it to him, and he looked at me. He's like, "I'm trying to go to the bathroom, man. What are you doing?" So I I gave him the book. I said when I came back, I said, "I don't know if he's going to read it, but at least I gave it to him." And then the next morning, he came to me and found me in the audience and said, "Hey, I read half your book last night, and I really resonate with what you wrote. And in there, you wrote that you want to open medical centers that treat patients this way. And that's a dream of mine. And I'd love to explore doing that together. Why don't you meet me for lunch?" And we had lunch that afternoon and started talking. And then we worked with Whole Foods Market basically for the next 10 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So maybe that's another trait, is following people, having the courage, I guess, to follow people to the bathroom.
Well, yeah, and be in the room with people that matter, and put yourself in situations and environments that can make you grow. And after 10 years, what happened with Whole Foods Market? How did you transition to the other step?
So Whole Foods Market, as you probably know, got bought by Amazon, and things started changing. It was just different. It's a much bigger company, and there's just so many hoops and different people and departments that want to do things the way they. So there's a department that wants to run health plans the way they want to, and there's departments that want to advertise what healthy food is the way they want to, and then there's legal departments that, you can't say this and you got to do this and it just got to be, I think we were successful. We showed a significant reduction in cost, in healthcare costs with our model. But now we were getting to the place where you have to just reproduce it and expand it. There wasn't as much creativity. It was more managing. And me and Alona, who's my wife and partner, was also there. And we get more excited around the creativity and creating new things and learning and growing and adding to. And that is not something that's easily done in a large corporate environment. So we basically said, we've done 10 years. Things are changing. We want to bring in all this connection medicine stuff that it's not of interest as much to the powers that be. So we decided to just start our own journey separate from Whole Foods, and we had put in a good amount of time and felt comfortable with it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I always wonder, the other day I was...
Are you a busy medical professional striving to excel in life and work? Stellar Success Podcast brings you the habits and insights of top leaders in medicine and beyond. Discover strategies for balance, growth, and fulfillment in every episode. Follow us on Instagram at Stellar Success Podcast for daily inspiration. Start your journey to success today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel now.
Price. I saw a list of foods and in grocery stores in the United States that are completely banned from Europe for different reasons. Obviously, food composition and all the preservatives and all the stuff. But it struck me how many and the amount and the brands that are actually banned in Europe compared to us. What is your experience working in that field? With the way we market food here?
I think it's pretty simple to me that most of the food it should be whole plant foods. So if you're eating a little bit of packaged food, there's things that chemicals and all sorts of stuff that food industry takes advantage of, and not just the food. There's all sorts of industries that take advantage of the consumers, and it's a problem. But in general, if you're eating lots of fruits and vegetables and whole grains and legumes as a majority of your caloric intake, you're avoiding all the stuff that's banned or not banned in certain countries compared to other countries.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point.
So that's where I would put my focus. And then, if you're going to eat some packaged foods and if they're banned, I do a lot of things that I'll look at Europe and say, what are they doing? So that'll help me determine what I want to do here. Even in the healthcare practice, I had a doctor that wanted a surgeon, a pediatric surgeon that wanted to do a surgery on my daughter's lung for something that we found incidentally in an ultrasound when she was just 20 weeks. And we said, hey, she's never had symptoms, never had problems, and they wanted to take this thing out. They said, oh, you got to take this out. They tried scaring us. It's going to be turn into cancer and it's going to have infection. And years later, we went back we were tracking it. It was getting smaller as she was growing, which means it was not growing. Never had, knock wood, never had symptoms. And they still wanted to do surgery on her. So I read an article from an expert in the UK, and I emailed him, and he wrote back to me. I said, here's what's going on. He said, our most aggressive surgeons wouldn't touch your daughter. He said, you got to run from those doctors. He said, stop imaging her. You don't need to track this anymore. She's now 13. You can let this go. And if she has symptoms, you'll deal with it. But otherwise, don't go in there. And it was so nice to have somebody from the UK, an expert who wrote articles on this specific, versus everybody talks about the best. This was the best surgeon in this city, pediatric surgeon. And it's so hard to sift through all the noise and misinformation out there.
Yeah.
And I don't doubt that surgeon thought he was doing something good.
Yeah.
But I think that we are making a big mistake in how we treat lots of patients, from everything to cancer treatments to screening for diseases to interventions like this doctor was going to do. There's all back surgeries, all different types of spine surgery. We're causing all sorts of problems. There's so much overtreatment and unnecessary things that are ultimately hurting. All they can do is hurt patients because they can't help them. So all you have is adverse effect. That it's really tough for patients now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a big issue, and also I think a lot of people don't understand that food can be a medicine too. And if you change your diet accordingly, and you make some research into this, you can treat a lot of ailments with just food or changing what you're eating.
Yes.
And that's very important. That's funny because the other day I was in a grocery store and I looked, when you look, you have those aisle signs all over, which aisles contains what. And I'm looking at the end of the aisles, and there's a sign saying healthy food on that aisle. And I'm like, okay, if that's healthy food, what are the rest of them? Why are you doing this? Like, what does that mean?
Nobody even picks their head up and says, wait a second, this isn't right.
I know. And I was like, this is the problem. This is what the problem here is. But it's funny you said that. And I totally recommend people to look into what you're doing, and the documentary itself and the whole movement with plant-based diet.
It's very important though, because a lot of people talk about diet as it can be a medicine.
Right.
What I think is to think about it as our natural state is healthy and vibrant. And what we're doing is when we put all of this toxicity into us, all of the Western diet into us, we take us out of our natural state. So when you eat healthy food, you're basically stopping the toxicity and allowing our bodies to do what they naturally do. So I don't think of it as so much as a medicine as we're hitting ourselves in the hand with a hammer 3 times a day with our meals. And our hand is red and sore. And then we say to the doctor, as you're hitting yourself 3 times a day, doctor, can you give me a cream? Can you give me pain medicine? Can you do a surgery? Because it hurts. And then all of a sudden they go see somebody like me and they say, what if we stop hitting our hand with a hammer? We take away the hammer. And I give them something else to do instead of hitting themselves with a hammer. And all of a sudden their hand gets better without creams, without surgery, without doing anything. People don't question that. They'll say, of course their hand's going to get better because their body's going to heal. It's going to do it. Your body's natural state is not to have a big red sore hand. Your body's natural state is to be healthy, vibrant, and rich and alive. So I don't know. I think it's important to make clear that our natural state is healthy, trim, and vibrant. And we just have to get rid of all the toxicity, all the toxic things we're doing to ourselves day in and day out. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. I think that's an excellent point. Excellent analogy. And, I believe that people forget how miraculous the body is. We don't explain a lot of things, how from 1 cell or 2 cells we evolve to be what we are right now as adults. And then in the same time, we ask, how can we treat these diseases that we have? We push medicine, we invent medicine, but we forget how big of a role our own self has upon our body. And
it's
the whole immune system is based on that principle.
Yeah, it's all our body. Even broken bones, all we do is line them up. Your body is what heals them.
Right, exactly.
Right? So to me, this is your natural state. Your body wants to be healthy. Your body is going towards health. In fact, both physically and emotionally, which is probably a whole
Yeah.
other podcast, that your body will lead you towards healing as long as you don't get in the way. So removing the hammer, removing the toxic Western diet is all you got to do, and then get out of the way, let the body do what it needs to do. And you have to eat something. You give them the foods the fuel your body was designed to run on, and then it'll take care of the rest.
Yeah. Removing the hammer, this is an interesting concept, in parallel with the intermittent fasting notion of, maybe not eating that much and leave the body to heal itself.
Yeah.
And I remember, growing up in Romania, I had grandparents that one of my grandmothers lived to be like 99. And at some point she was very lucid and, with it till the end. And I asked her, I said, what do you think it's the most important thing you did in your life to get you to this age? And she looked at me, she said, I didn't eat Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. So, sometimes, this notion of like not eating that much, it's very important. And when you eat, like you said, eat the right stuff. But anyway,
Yeah, and we don't need that much.
Exactly.
I eat 2 meals a day. I eat at 11:30 and I eat at 5:30. And I'm not eating a ton of food.
Yeah.
We don't need that much. And I probably, and I could easily go a week or two without eating and then eat again. Now, I'm not recommending people do that. My point is, we are so obsessed with food, and it makes it really challenging. Everything we do is around food. Go out, let's go out to eat. What are we gonna eat? Let's go out here. Oh, let's put snack bars there. Let's go to the movies. Oh, we got to go to the concession stand. Everything
Right.
is around
Everything
food.
is right. Exactly. And
Holidays, food.
it's more of a lifestyle already, and it's more of a commercial push from the businesses around us to eat more.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, juices, smoothies, cookies, all the stuff that you don't really need. But
Exactly.
you want them because it's sugar and it's addictive.
Yeah. I mean, our body, it takes advantage of our body's natural systems, and it makes them go haywire.
Right. I want to go back to yourself a little bit more.
Yeah.
And ask you something that, a little more of an introspective question. From where you are right now, with the experience that you have and the wisdom that you got in your journey, if you would look back to yourself when you were younger, what kind of advice would you give to yourself?
I would give myself advice to learn how to check in with my body, and learn how to communicate with my body the wisdom it has in telling me what would serve me, the ability to check in with what makes me happy, what aligns with my values versus doing what I think I should. So intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. I was so focused on being a good student, a good kid, a good worker, that I never picked my head up to see what I want, what aligns with my values, and let my values drive me. So it wasn't until much later in life, through my nonviolent communication training, that I learned that there's all this information and wisdom inside me. And instead of focusing on some external goal that was created by some external system, that I could actually check inside and be led in a direction that will serve me best. And part of my serving me, I'm not talking about selfishly. Part of what serves me actually is to contribute to my community. Part of my need, one of my major needs is interdependence, that all needs matter, and that meeting my needs at the expense of yours doesn't meet my needs. So learning how to do that and telling myself at a very young age that this is the key to success in life. And that's how with my kids, that's how I parent. We have what we teach, a big part of what I do now is working with parents and couples. And I teach them this collaborative, non-permissive parenting style. So it's how to connect around everybody's needs and move forward in a way that meets everybody's needs, not the parents at the expense of the kids, and not the kids at the expense of the parents. So it's a beautiful way to go through life. And if you're not familiar with it, it could seem different, particularly people who grow up in authoritarian or permissive communities or households or families. But it is the key to lasting joy and satisfaction in your life.
Yeah, that's amazing. We're gonna give the listeners a little bit more information at the end how they can learn about these methods from you. But I want to touch a little bit on your skill of communication, because I think this is an important thing for happiness in general and success, obviously. And I'm thinking about the study that was made about the blue zones, where they found that the people who lived, very long, the principal thing that they have is community around them, and the relationships they have, and the fact that they're talking every day with someone, with friends, with family, and they communicate. What do you advise, from what you know right now, for someone to go and do in that sense?
So can you say that again? Because I'm not sure I got the question. It's around
What's your
communication?
advice for someone who wants to communicate more with their family and friends and create some sort of a community around them, to help them
Yeah.
be better, be more happy?
Yeah. For me, it was life-changing to learn nonviolent communication. And the funny thing is, I'm one of the few medical doctors, that's actually certified as a trainer. And I would think this would be pretty common in the healthcare space. In fact, when we started bringing nonviolent communication into the medical offices, and we taught the providers and the health coaches how to do it, and then they started using it with their patients, two things happened. Their job satisfaction went up. They said, wow, we really are happier here. Nothing changed except that they learned how to connect with patients differently. And then two, they said that their patients were telling them things they never told them before. Patients were telling them stuff that, even though they knew this patient for 3 years, they didn't learn any of the stuff about the patient's history that was actually impact or changing or had an impact on what they were going to do and change the trajectory. So it is so important to learn how, and I call this is connection. It's not just about communication, it's about connection. So how do you connect with what you're feeling and needing, and how do you connect with other people around what they're feeling and needing, and how do you navigate all that in a way that creates a lot of harmony? Right now, most people, and compassionate, authentic harmony. Right now, most people, when there's harmony, it's artificial harmony, where they're suppressing their true feelings and needs to be able to get along in the relationship, which actually puts us into a pro-inflammatory state. When we're suppressing our feelings and needs, and we're suppressing our emotion, we do a whole talk on this, it puts us into a pro-inflammatory state. So focusing on the nutrition and exercise and lifestyle without also including the connection, you're only getting half of the bang as far as affecting inflammation and affecting your physical health. It affects cancer metastases, cancer growth, neurodegenerative disorders. It affects your ability to fight viral infections. All of this is so important. So not only does it improve your overall sense of well-being, it improves your health as well.
Yeah, that's very important. Matthew, how can everybody reach out to you and your program and your wisdom?
Well, I would, people can see us a couple of things. They can go to connectiondocs.com. They can learn more about what we do there. We have a Substack where we have a weekly article around these type of topics, where I'm sharing vulnerably my journey and what I'm learning at Substack. Again, that's Connection Docs. We have the other thing that I really recommend to people is the WeBecome device that we created, which I love. I'm so excited. I use it. It's a device that has a tube that you can blow out, and then it has an indicator on here. And when you blow out, you can see the ball goes up. And the only way you can blow out comfortably is if you slowly exhale. And when you have a slow exhalation, you stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. And the other thing is focused attention on the ball. So when you have focused attention, that's also a mindfulness practice that again stimulates the parasympathetics. And then you have some white noise that comes out here for auditory regulation. And what I have is people do this at night before bed every night, 5 repetitions. You can do it another set of 5. And if you do this every night, you start to build this new neural pathway, this new neural network that triggers calming in your body. And you create this muscle memory that at any point during the day, I could tell my kids or myself, let's just take a wee breath, and now you've trained your body on how to do this breathing. And you get and you get it right because you got the feedback from using it every night. And it has been so impactful for people, that particularly those that do it every night. You don't have to do it all the time, but you have to do it every day. The key is long term. And I highly recommend people checking out the WeBecome, which is WEBE and then KALM.com. And they can look at that and use that. Really important. And then the other way they can hear us is on our podcast, the WeBeParents.com podcast. And that's all about helping bring nonviolent communication and connection into the family.
That's amazing. Yeah, I definitely recommend everybody to check this work out.
And then our book, Wellness to Wonderful, we put together, that teaches people all the stuff I talked about today, it sort of summarizes all that and makes it very easy to get at least an initial course on that.
Yeah, that's amazing. What's
Yeah.
what's coming up for you? What's new? What are you excited about this year?
I'm excited about, we created an AI connection coach that you can talk to, and they can coach you on how to communicate more effectively in your relationships. So you can role play and get empathy and get strategies on how to navigate relationships in a healthier way. And it can take into account your attachment style and your conflict style and your love prescription. And it puts all of that together to give you a very personally tailored coaching experience. 24/7, you can get support. My kids use it, I use it, and that's going to be launched this year. We just did a beta launch recently, and I'm excited, but that's at Kinectin, KINECTIN.com. And I'm pretty excited to be able to impact lots of people at a fraction of the cost that working with me would be, for example. So I can only hit so many people in a day with my coaching, and I have to charge more. Now we can touch so many people at a significantly lower cost.
Yeah, definitely. We'll look into this. Matthew, I appreciate your time. I think it was very interesting, and I suggest to keep doing what you're doing because it's very important. And
Well,
I want to check back with you maybe later in the year and see where you are. But thank you so much.
thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's a wrap on Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Interested in joining us? Go to stellarsuccesspodcast.com/guest to apply. Stay stellar and level up.